What's up, guys? Welcome back to Hands On channel. I thought today we would go over just a quick little list of things that I found as I was surfing around on the internet on all the different forums, just common problems to watch out for if you have a Mahindra tractor of this series. This one here is a 4025, but I guess the 4540s, the 4530s, 4550s, they're all very similar and they're based on the same chassis. So let me get you pulled in here and show you some things to look out for. And I actually found a couple of these things right off the bat on my tractor before they became a problem. And that's, of course, that's the name of the game as far as maintenance goes, is try to get it before it becomes an issue. So first of all here, all of these bolts right here that hold your front end loader on my tractor, I could physically come up and loosen these, a couple of these, not all of them, but a couple of them were loose enough that I could move them by hand, unscrew them by hand. Apparently that's a known problem. These things, they vibrate a lot. You know, any big piece of machinery like this is going to vibrate a lot, but apparently they skipped the part of putting the Loctite on here. So what I did was, one at a time, I pulled the bolts out and I put some red Loctite on each one of them, and I tightened them up as tight as I could get them because I couldn't find any torque specs on them. So I just tightened them as tight as I could possibly get them, hoping that that will solve the problem. But yeah, I highly recommend that. Almost all of mine, they weren't all hand loose, but a lot of them were so loose that I didn't even have to hardly break them loose. So go and check these periodically. Otherwise, I saw a video online or a picture online where a guy didn't check those and ended up breaking loose here, and it broke this whole entire section here that holds the front end loader on. So I'm sure that was pretty expensive for the guy. So don't let that happen to you. And while I was at it, there's some other bolts over here on the front side. Those were really tight, so I didn't take those out. There was no need to, but just watch all of those big bolts because, you know, they can work loose over time. It could have been that they were never tightened up tight enough from the factory. The next one, I haven't actually looked at mine yet, but that'd be one of the next things I do. Behind the front end up here, you have to actually take the side cover, or these little side bolts out, and you can take the front out. You take that front grill guard off, and you look for corroded battery tray, corroded battery cables, that kind of stuff. Apparently they put a pretty, I don't know, maybe it's just standard for a tractor because it bounces around so much, but the lead acid leaks out of there over time and it gets on that battery tray and it'll rot that tray out. And the other thing I saw was that apparently they used a pretty inferior battery cable connector. So those are prone to corrode and go bad. So if you come out one day and your tractor just goes click and nothing happens, you probably want to look at that battery cable connection area. And I don't know if the cables themselves are bad or if it's just the terminals. I would assume it's just the terminal. Up underneath here, right there, there is a petcock to turn the fuel tank on and off. And there's some drips coming out around mine. I don't know if it's actually the petcock seal or the O-ring leaking, or if it's actually the fitting, because I can't really show you, but there's a rubber hose that goes into this fitting here. It's like a ferrule type fitting, so they crimped it on from the factory. I can't tell if it's leaking there or if it's leaking at the petcock, but apparently these things are known for having leaky fuel hoses. Apparently they didn't either use the right kind of fuel hose, or maybe just the vibration gets to them over time. The ferrules maybe weren't tight enough, I don't know. But unfortunately, I don't know of any way to tighten those ferrules up. So more than likely, now on this one here, that's a suction line. It goes from the gas tank over to the fuel injectors, or over to the fuel pump, I guess, the injector pump. And since that's a suction line, you don't have to worry about high pressure or anything like that. So you could get by with gear clamps on that, which is what I'm going to do if I can isolate it to the hose and make sure that it's not the actual petcock itself that's leaking. Speaking of that though, fuel related issues, one of the very, very common ones for this tractor, apparently it has a steel tank and they lined it with some kind of coating on the inside. Over time, the diesel can eat that coating off the inside of the tank and turn it into little tiny bits. And apparently there's an internal screen type fuel filter up above this petcock. Those things are notorious for clogging up. Maybe it's just dirty diesel that you put in there and you didn't, know it, but it had a little bit of grit in it and it clogged it up, or Apparently diesel can algae and do different things like that. One of the ways to avoid that is to keep your tank full and run it full all the time, and don't run it down to the bottom, because anytime you run a tank down to the bottom, now you're getting all that concentrated stuff into that screen, and that could cause you issues. So one of the things I'm going to do to avoid that is run my tank really full, try to keep it as full as I can. And in fact, in like your off season, when you're not using it in the winter months, you should store it with a full tank of fuel anyways, because the less oxygen that's inside that metal tank, the less likely it is that it's going to rust inside of there. So I recommend, if you don't use it at all during the winter, you probably want to store it and put some kind of stabilizer additive inside your diesel to make sure that it starts up for you in the spring. But we don't really get really hard winters here normally. This year has been an exception, but normally we don't get really super cold winters, so I'm usually able to do some tractoring during the winter. So I don't change my fuel or do anything different with that. But anyways, just watch out for that, because apparently if that screen inside the tank clogs up, the way you'll know it is it'll start smoking white and running like piss. It'll run really terrible. It won't hardly have any power, and you'll be like, oh my God, what's wrong with my tractor? Why is it smoking? You know, and it apparently will put out a lot of white smoke. So I don't know. I haven't experienced that yet myself. I'm hoping that, being that this is a new tank, it's a 2014 tractor, but it's a low hours tractor, I'm hoping I'm not going to have those kinds of problems with it. But just in case, I'm going to run it full just to be safe. But yeah, watch out for that. And also the fuel hoses, apparently those are known to drip, because either they didn't use the right kind of fuel line to begin with, or possibly, like I said, just vibration caused it to come loose. But anyways, I haven't really had any issues with mine. The only thing I'm going to have to work on is that drip I was talking about on this fuel tank right here. And what I've been doing to deal with it for now is, every time I'm done with it, when I put it up in my shop, I just turn the petcock off. And I've noticed since I started doing that, it's not leaving a small puddle on my floor. Before, I was getting a little puddle on the floor if I just left it on. So the other day, just doing basic maintenance stuff and talking about that, anytime you get a new piece of equipment, you're going to want to go around and grease everything up. Get yourself a good quality grease gun. I've got one of those, what's it called? A shuttle, lube shuttle, I believe is what it's called. It's a German made grease gun. It works really good, but any kind of grease gun would do the job. Just get it done and make sure you hit all of the zerks, because there's a lot of them underneath there that are not obvious. You have to really hunt around and look for them. And it might be a good idea to buy some of those little grease zerk covers. And usually you can get those color coded. So, you know, buy some bright red ones or something yellow or something like that you'll easily be able to see. And then next time you do it, it won't be so hard. So anyways, I'm really loving this thing. I haven't got to do a lot of dirt work with it yet. We've just mainly been doing tree work around here on my property. This is my suburb house, and we had a really mega ice storm earlier in the year. So we're still picking up branches and doing stuff like that. But this thing is a beast. I can't wait to put the bucket in the dirt. I'm just dying to scratch some dirt with it, but I'm trying not to tear up my yard over here. I'm going to save that for when we get on the big property over there and start doing some preparations for house building and stuff like that. But yeah, really loving this thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think if you keep the fuel tank full, keep the oils and the stuff like that, you know, your hydraulic fluids changed out on the recommended intervals, you shouldn't have any issues. But yeah, I'm really liking this thing so far. I just wanted to tell you guys some different things that, you know, from all of my research and reading into the wee hours of the morning, trying to figure out, you know, anticipate things that might go bad before they become a problem. That way, if you're out in the field, away from your shop where your tools are and all that stuff, you'll know exactly what to look for, and it won't be a big mystery for you. But yeah, otherwise, I haven't had any issues. I see a lot of people that are looking at these tractors online, and their main question is, how hard is it to deal with that shifter and all that stuff that's in the middle of the floor? And honestly, it's not hard at all. I am not an expert tractor guy, but you know, there's your shifters. Yeah, you have to kind of step around it when you're getting in or out, or step over it, whichever you prefer. But it's not really very hard at all. There's plenty of room to do it. I mean, you have to think about it a little bit, where if you were on an open floor, you wouldn't have to think about it at all. You could get in and out probably a little quicker, but it hasn't been an issue for me. It's a heck of a back saver compared to pushing a wheelbarrow around and stuff like that. but I haven't had any problem shifting it or even on the fly as I'm going. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is you drive it just like a car, or I do. If you were to try to shift a car, let's say you're driving a 4-speed or a 5-speed modern car, and you try to shift that thing on the fly, don't you normally let off the accelerator in between shifts? Well, of course you do. And I think that's one of the mistakes people are making, is when you try to shift the thing when it's revved up. You know, this thing's got a floor accelerator pedal or a throttle pedal on the floor over there. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it's a little square thing over there that you can use like a normal throttle pedal in a car. And it's also got one that's overexposed up here, but it's got a throttle lever just like normal tractors have, where you can push it up and it'll just hold that RPM, which is great for doing like loader work and stuff like that, and doing or if you're doing field work and you need to get it in like 3rd gear and just run straight down the field all day long back and forth, you know, that's perfect. You want to set that almost like a cruise control. But if you're going around, you're moving, you're changing speeds, I keep that thing down to the minimum, the hand throttle, and I use the foot throttle. And the reason why is because in between shifts you can let off. You let off the throttle. You've got enough momentum going where you're still rolling forward. You let off the throttle, you push the clutch in kind of simultaneously, and then you find the gear that you're trying to go to. Now, I haven't tried downshifting. It might not accept that, but I'm usually upshifting. Usually I'm in 3rd gear, like I'm in 3 low and I want to go to 4 low, because both of those speeds, because you're in low range, are fairly slow. But you know, there's times you want to go a little bit faster, so you can you can easily shift from 3rd to 4th, or from 2nd to 3rd, or 1st to 2nd, whatever you're wanting to do, if you just let off the throttle, push in the clutch. And on this thing, it's got a 2-stage clutch, so you push it in halfway, and that takes the forward momentum. You know, it takes the clutch off of the transmission, off the wheels. If you push it in all the way to the floor, that would stop your PTO as well. That's how you do the PTO clutch on this thing. So pretty interesting. Just wanted to share kind of some of the few things that I've learned about it here, so that if you guys run into problems, you'll know kind of what to look for. Living the dream out here, guys. Enjoying it. So appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully this was helpful and informative to you. If it was, please hit the thumbs up. That helps the videos out, and share these videos if you like them. And until then, guys, we'll see you next time.